love this book. Today I'm going to share what I wish I knew before writing my beat sheet, as well as sharing feedback from an industry expert on where most people go wrong with it. How was my beat sheet?
Yeah, I would say you hit a lot of the beats.
If you're new here, I'm currently working my way through a 100-day challenge of forming another screenplay. I've got videos in the series already, 5 things I'm doing differently before starting a screenplay, as well as taking a deep dive into forming log lines. I'll link them in the description if you'd like to check those out first. As some of you know, I paid for a consultation to get feedback on my beat sheet. And I thought it would be cool to open the first point by sharing information from an industry expert of where most people go wrong with forming a beat sheet.
So the Save the Cat beat sheet fools a lot of people because it sort of looks like each beat should get equal attention. And it really should get equal attention, but you have to kind of understand what the function of each beat is, right? Some of them are turning points, some of them are sections of your script. And so when you're filling it out, you want to make sure to know which of the beats are which of those things, so that you're not packing too much story into one beat that's supposed to be one scene, and you're filling out enough story in the beats that are meant to be sections.
I can't tell you how valuable this point was for me because I fleshed out sections that were meant to be turning points. Let me explain. Here are the beats if you didn't know. You can access them in a simple Google search, but I would highly recommend buying the book. And I'm not being dramatic here, this book would go into one of the 5 or so books that I would consider life-changing. That is, if you're interested in being a screenwriter. Okay, take the catalyst for an example. This is supposed to be a moment, not a section. I've learned that it should be obvious and not too complicated. If you think of The Proposal, I love that movie, but the catalyst was not as sharp as with Harry Potter. The idea of Margaret needing to publish a book or risk being deported was a mouthful. Whereas Hagrid turns Harry's world upside down with, "You're a wizard." Now that's a moment. The second thing I wish I knew was that to state the theme, it helps to know your main character. Now, I was very much in the developmental phase when I wrote my beat sheet, and I struggled with this beat because I didn't feel as if I really knew my main character fully. I felt that she transformed with every version of the beat sheet that I had written, and I think it would have been really helpful if I figured her out before I started the developmental phase. Maybe this isn't the case for everyone, but I find that it's a lot easier to write a story around someone than creating a world and forcing someone to fit into it. It's kind of like that square peg in a round hole thing. Next, I wish I knew that I would be far more enthusiastic about writing and rewriting the beats up until the B story. I honestly reworked those beats about 70% or maybe even 80% more than I reworked the beats for the rest of the film. This resulted in me being energized and excited with the initial idea and then losing my creative mojo as the story continued. I think a fun way of approaching this going forward would be to work on beats individually as opposed to chronologically. But like I mentioned, I haven't tried this out, so if you have, let me know about your experience in the comments below. But it's definitely something that I'm keen to try out. Finally, when an idea for a movie comes to mind, it's usually the A story for me, not the B story. Where I can lose the beauty of the beat sheet is when my B story doesn't act as a breakaway from the A story. I'm doing a challenge this month where I'm reading a screenplay a day, and it's so interesting to pick up that if there is a lot of action or momentum in a story, it is so helpful to have a break because our poor brains and hearts can only handle so much drama. I've just read Being the Ricardos, where there are wonderful breaks from the A story. The writers of that show play such an epic role as a breakaway from the A story. That is really such a good script. I loved reading it. Then in Don't Look Up, which was honestly one of the most fast-paced screenplays I've ever read. I don't think I even breathed for the entire time that I read that movie. Just kidding. The hosts of the Daily Rip are introduced as the B story. That's where that uncomfortable relationship between Bree and Randall start that act as a breakaway from the intensity of the A story. Although that's also pretty intense. I could go on about B stories examples for a while. Maybe I should make a video about that in the future. If that's something you'd like to see, let me know in the comments below. I was going to share the beat sheet that I presented Naomi, but I've decided to rather share my feedback instead. Was my beat sheet any good?
Story-wise, I think you, broad strokes, have it figured out. I can see it from like the sort of 40,000 foot view. The details you're still figuring out, which is totally okay, because that's where you are in the process. But the overall like sort of arc of the story, like I know that there's a beginning, middle, and end. I can see the transition or the transformation of the character. All of that feels very clear. So like I would say, you did a good job on the beat sheet. Most of it is there, or at least I sense, you know, what it's going to be in the next version. 40,000 foot view wise, I can see the broad strokes of the story. There are things to tighten up still, and then you'll just want to get, and you'll need to get more and more granular in order to know what you're writing from page to page in the screenplay, you know.
This call inspired me to pull out the old Save the Cat book and lean into the pearls of wisdom that Blake guides us through. It's only after the call that I could see my blind spots. I'm inspired to change things up, and you know what? That's fine, because I'm still in the developmental phase of forming my screenplay. Talking about Naomi, the next video I post is going to be a look inside what I gained from our full consultation call. And if you're in a space where you're considering spending money on a session with an industry expert, this could be a good one to watch, so subscribe if you'd like to see that video. Then if you're wondering what to watch next, in my end screen, I will leave the first video in the series of me going about my 100-day screenwriting challenge. And that should give you context as to why I'm making videos about screenwriting in the first place. But I'd love to hear about you. Feel free to include your log lines in the description below. It would be epic if we could create an environment that's encouraging as we go about forming our screenplays. But good luck with your log line and your screenplay, and I'll see you in one of my next videos. Take care, guys.